And yeah, I want to introduce our two speakers for today. It's Ricky Gies, and Ricky Gies is the director of Alaska State Parks, and Chris Beck, who is Alaska Trails Initiative Coordinator for Alaska Trails. Ricky Gies, hold on just a second. I'm trying to find my windows here. Ricky Gies is the Alaska State Parks Director, and another way we know this organization is this agency is Alaska Department of Natural Resources, Division of Parks and Outdoor Recreation. Prior to this position, he served in various nonprofit executive management positions for 20 years, including as the executive director of the Kenai River Sports Fishing Association and the Kenai Convention and Visitors Bureau, as well as the museum manager of the Kenai Visitors and Cultural Center. He also served as a park ranger at Kenai Fjords National Park for 6 years. He holds master's and bachelor's degrees from Stanford University in biology and a certificate in nonprofit executive management from the Foraker Group. He has extensive service on various boards and commissions relating to natural and cultural resource management. He and his wife, Bonnie Swan, reside in Kenai. And I'm going to give a little introduction to Chris Beck, who's going to join the presentation as well. Chris, again, is the Alaska Trails Initiative Coordinator at Alaska Trails, and he is a land use planner with more than 30 years of experience specializing in tourism and recreation, land use, economic development, strategic planning, site planning, and public participation. He first came to Alaska in 1979, where he worked with Alaska Department of Natural Resources and helped craft the agency's regional land planning process. After running his own independent consultant-built business and earning master's degrees in city planning and in landscape architecture from UC Berkeley, he co-founded Agnew back in 2002. Chris has worked on tourism, recreation, and community planning issues around Alaska and the Western United States, developing successful projects ranging from resorts in the High Sierras to trails and park plans in communities around Alaska. Chris's overarching skill is the ability to forge shared goals and actions from diverse viewpoints. For example, finding the balance point between what a community wants and what it can afford, or between the desire to grow and the desire to protect what is special about a particular town or trail or bay. Well, thank you, both of you, for being here, and I'm going to start sharing screen with the presentation.
All right, great. I'll start off. As Mariam said, my name is Ricky Gies. I'm the director of the Division of Parks and Outdoor Recreation in Alaska DNR. And it's our pleasure to be working our core team partners on the statewide comprehensive outdoor recreation plan with Alaska Trails and with RTCA from the National Park Service. So if we go to the next slide.
Hold on just a second. I'm going to actually share the PowerPoint presentation instead of the PDF.
Okay.
Just a second.
All right, so the SCORP is the Statewide Comprehensive Outdoor Rec Plan, and it serves as our guide for all public outdoor recreation, both in rural and urban neighborhoods, cities, and regions across the state. It brings together all the wants and needs of recreation users and provides it into a single comprehensive document, and it's funded through the Land Water Conservation Fund through the National Park Service, which has been around for more than 50 years. So, yeah. Again, the act comes from the mid-60s, 1965, just as we were starting in. It predates the Alaska State Park System, which started in 1970, and but after statehood. We get about $2.5 million in funding through the Land Water Conservation Fund, and a lot of that funding comes from mineral explorations in the Outer Continental Shelf receipts. It's a 50-50 match requirement, and this program is only open to government agencies at the state, federal, and borough, and also tribes. Uh, 50% match comes from the state. The state covers the indirect match also that's required every year. And with the great passage of the Great America Outdoors Act just recently, this fund is in perpetuity. So this is the baseline funding that will be coming to the state. And typically there's about $1 million available for municipalities, boroughs, and tribes, and about a little bit more than half available for the state park system and DNR projects. Why do we need the SCORP? We need it for project prioritization. So it's a way we have limited funds for outdoor recreation sector in the state for infrastructure improvements and new projects. And so we're working to create data that helps us prioritize where the highest needs are in the state. And then it's also, we can use that as an advocacy tool to go out and look at other sources of funding, which we'll be doing in this process to kind of match up with the LWCF funding that we have. So in this areas, some of the reasons that we're looking at. So we're looking at goals, strategies, and priorities. We're looking at evaluation criteria to allocate the Land Water Conservation Fund. It's to elevate public participation and engagement through surveys and feedback. These funds help us protect, conserve, and manage our public lands. We're also looking at kind of their siloed areas for recreation, and we're looking to integrate and connect outdoor recreation systems in the state. In the last few years, we've seen a growing demand for access and opportunities, especially in the years of COVID. In 20 and 21 for Alaska State Parks, we had the highest use years ever for Alaska State Parks. We're also looking at to demonstrate and grow the benefits of outdoor recreation and expand resources needed to support outdoor recreation into the future. In the past years since its inception for the LWCF fund, there has been over 300 different projects funded throughout the whole state. And you can see the variety of different types of playgrounds, athletic fields, campgrounds, trails, green belts, parking, restrooms, park maintenance, outdoor public use cabins, and land acquisitions. So those are all varieties of projects that are eligible for funding through LWCF.
Thank you, Ricky. And with that, we're going to switch to Chris's presentation. We're going to talk about for a few more slides. I think Chris wants to share his screen, so I'm going to stop sharing. Is that right, Chris?
Yes, please, now that I've turned off mute. Thank you. Looks like it's not quite there yet. There we go. Thank you. And let me hit slideshow. So thanks, Ricky, for that helpful introduction. I've got a bunch of words here, but I think it's worth sharing. As you clarified, this is a requirement to be done every 5 years to be eligible for these federal dollars. And we're doing it differently this time. In the past, these plans have been helpful, but they've not really actually lived up to being a locally driven, comprehensive process. So we're aiming to meet those eligibility requirements, but do more than that. And actually think in a way that Alaska never really has about outdoor recreation as a big part of our component, a big part of our economy, a big part of our quality of life, of what attracts and holds a skilled workforce, what contributes to health. So it's a much more ambitious and I believe much more valuable and not necessarily very widely known process. Maureen will talk a little bit more about the schedule, but it's to be completed over the rest of this year. We've also more and more found that there's more and more federal money in particular available, but to be ready for that, you have to have a shovel-ready project. So we're trying to drive that process, bring more projects forward that can be eligible for federal funds. It's an easy sentence, but I think it's an important one. Bring together the currently siloed outdoor recreation community. If you contrast the advocates for outdoor recreation with other industries, be it fishing or oil and gas, those organizations have, those groups have really come together and they've been a lot more impactful with policy, with funding than necessarily the outdoor recreation community has been. So we're hoping to bring that team together to have more clout, to get more done. And with the ultimate goal of having more money to respond to growth, to improve the opportunities that we share, to disperse use so we don't have to confront crowding at every location that used to be quiet. And we need money for construction and maintenance and management. So if you've been engaged in the Alaska outdoor recreation world for the last couple of years, you'll know a lot of these statements. I won't beat on them for the 98th time, but there's a lot of money underappreciated, the scale of the outdoor recreation in the country, recreation industry in the country and in the state. People would not know it was me if I didn't say one more day. If we could get just half of one of the existing visitors to Alaska to spend one more day, it's 137. If we could get all of the currently 9-day long average trip visitors to spend a day, it's $250 million. So it's worth trying to create more reasons for people to have the motivation, the opportunity to stick around in Alaska. It brings in a lot of money to municipal governments, that box in the middle, the out-of-state spending by visitors to Alaska. Visitors from out of state to Alaska spend $126 million, which drives the budgets for schools, for cleaning roads, for a whole lot of things that are important to what it's like to live in Alaska. So this says robust public engagement. I think, be honest, we're working towards that. It's been a project that in other states has had very large scale funding from the get-go. This one has been a little more of a potluck dinner effort over the last year and a half, although finally some funds have come in for some contractual support. But Alaska Trails, the Rivers Trails Conservation Assistance Program with the National Park Service, a variety of volunteers have been putting time into this effort, and we're getting ready to broaden the awareness of the public and seek broader input. But we have a statewide advisory group. We have regional working groups in different parts of the state. We're getting ready to do public and land manager surveys. And then we'll be releasing a draft of the public review draft of the SCORP in late summer. This gives you some sense of the variety of folks who are on the SWAG, the statewide advisory group. It's a really robust group. It brings in agencies, businesses, representatives of health interests, some of the entities that have a big voice in outdoor recreation, but have tended to not work together. Alaska Outdoor Council is a good group. The Alaska Travel Industry Association, people from Fish and Game, from the U.S. Forest Service. These folks have been working together for the last year to come up with statewide scale recommendations for what might be the future pathways for Alaska and outdoor recreation. And without trying to read all those things, but hitting the highlights, what is emerging, but will still be subject to public review and review by anyone who cares about the subject, are a set of goals that you can see there. And, you know, really hang on and celebrate to the unique aspects of outdoor recreation in Alaska. Build a stronger, more durable state economy. That's particularly important as traditional sources of economic activity in Alaska, like oil and gas, are declining. Build a stronger and attract a really skilled, energetic, capable workforce. That's a big challenge. We heard from Teresa this morning how hard it is to hire people. Alaska is struggling with that. And one of the ways we can get around some of the other challenges of the state are by making this a really fun place to live year round. Health, I think it's almost become a cliche, but one approach to health issues is to treat symptoms when people are ill. A better approach, and the opportunity that Alaska can offer through outdoor recreation, is to keep people healthy and active in the first place. This whole number 5 on this bullet list of how we can do the challenging thing of grow, because we probably want to create more opportunities, and also maybe just because it's coming, whether or not we're asking for it. How do we balance that response or drive for growth with being good stewards of the places and the experience that we all love? Nobody wants to see every place that they love to spend time become so busy it loses its enjoyment. I'm going to see if I can get this to shift to the side. And then those last 2 on this list are maybe the heart of the whole SCORP. Build the base of sustainable outdoor recreation capital and operations funding. We need to find a way to do that. Alaska is really chronically underinvested in outdoor recreation for decades. And then bring together these fragmented outdoor recreation parties in Alaska so we can have more impact. With that, I'm going to charge through a last slide or 2, and we'd love to have your thoughts or questions about all this. We're also working, I described a statewide scale, but working at the regional scale. And so people have been good enough to step forward and come up with ideas about good examples of projects and programs that meet the broad goals that I outlined. And I can personally guess that that may turn out to be, for many people, the most interesting part of this document. And it's a great place for those who are interested in these subjects to lean in and talk to the team working on all this with your ideas for what are great projects that the statewide comprehensive outdoor recreation plan should recognize as priorities going forward. This gives the list of the folks who are working on this. In a better world, there would be more detailed work in some of the rural areas in Alaska. With the schedule and the limited funding available right now, we're largely focused on a slightly narrower part of the state. You can see the list: the Rail Belt, Prince William Sound, Southeast, and a bit in rural Alaska, but it's not as detailed as there as it ultimately should become. And I'm going to switch it back now to Ricky. I can lead this slide up, but you could talk a little bit, Ricky, about this work that the contractors are doing. I'll leave it to you. And you're on mute.
Thanks, Chris. I'm going to share my screen here in just a little bit, but one of the things that we're creating with this SCORP is that we don't need information in the state, we need data in the state. And the areas that we're generating data through this is working through the contracts, like Chris said. We're developing GIS maps of existing park structures. There's 12,000 different polygons for land management units across the state. State Parks has 157 of those. And I'll show a slide here where we have that. We're looking at the supplies, and that'll identify the infrastructure in terms of boat launches, campgrounds, trails, parking lots, restrooms, all that type of good stuff for outdoor recreation, public use cabins. And then we're also looking at demand. And we're getting to the demand side on multiple fronts. We have mobility data that's anonymized, and I'll show you the screen here in just a little bit in terms of unique visitors and users. But then, as Chris said, we're also going out with public surveys and land management surveys to really dig down into the ground and into the different management units of the land managers. And that's being paralleled with the Forest Service and other federal agencies that are doing surveys and drilling down to see what is needed not so much as kind of lofty statewide policies, but more regional needs and park-specific needs. I am going to, Chris, if you can
I'm going to stop sharing.
Yeah, and let me share here. I am going to share the screen. I get to share screen here. Share screen. All right. Miriam, can you allow me to share screen? Or I actually sent you the PDF, can you share that on your own end? Or Chris?
You want to do that,
I
Mariam?
just gave you the privileges. You should be
Okay,
able to
all
see.
right, here we go. Here we go. Sharing screen here. So this is what I mean by data. So we have collected the mobility data from 19, 20, and 21. We have for each park unit.
Ricky, could you just clarify when you said mobility data? I'm not sure everybody knows that term.
I'll get to that.
Okay.
So this right here is the snapshot, the screenshot that we have from Chena River State Recreation Area. On this side over here, you can look at all the different state park and national park units, and these are the amount of unique devices that have in the years. I think this year is from 2021. So Chugach State Park, not surprisingly, is double the visitation than any other unit in outdoor recreation land management unit in the state. Kena River Special Management Area, followed by Denali National Park, State Park. So this is kind of different areas. So this one's from Chena River State Recreation Area. And on this area, then unique mobility is the GPS data that we all voluntarily share. It's anonymized, but it's unique cell phones basically that are taken into land management units. So this is not a census per se, but it's a survey, but it's data that we can use and look at all different sites. If we look at this area right here, this is the GIS map in the middle, the boundaries of Chena River State Recreation Area. And you can see a lot of it's on the roadway, but then off roadway on the trail, different systems, and we can zero in specifically. You can look at the different years, the percent of out-of-state and in-state residents actually kind of grew through the years for out-of-state use of Chena River State Recreation Area. If we look at where the in-state residents came from, not surprisingly, the majority of users were from the Fairbanks North Star Borough, but that only accounted for about half the users. Anchorage, Matsu, you know, the whole rest of the state kind of fills in the rest of the 50% of the out-of-state users. This is the first time we've had actual data that we can look at where folks are coming from. We've looked at other US, about 24%, pretty consistent for non-resident use. And then if we want to, we can break down what states are those other US users coming from. We could check to see where the users are coming from for the different years. And then you can also look at during the week. So this park, basically you could see typically Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays get the majority of the use. And then it kind of dips down in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And that's a pattern that we see throughout the state. So this is the type of data that we are now organizing. And you can see we're combining the GIS map layers from across the state with the mobility data. And then once we get our public survey and land manager surveys, we can start to look at what information we have from the public in terms of needs assessment, things we're doing well, things that we need improvements on in terms of infrastructure. So this is just kind of preliminary data that we're just starting to tease apart and start to see now. And this is the first time that Chris has seen this. So just created it today. So anyway, wanted to share that with everybody, and I will stop sharing and go back. We're just about, Chris, if you have final comments or.
I think it's Mariam's going to wrap us up.
Okay.
Yeah, well, okay. I can find the right screen to share. Let's see. So my 2 slides are just about the next steps and how to get involved and what to expect in the next few months. So this general slide is showing our work over the past year and going forward. It's a little bit hard to read. I just wanted to point out that we started this process, and by we, I mean it's a diverse team of collaborators. The state parks obviously are involved. It's the state parks document, and 2 other organizations and agencies are involved. The RTCA, we mentioned, the Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance Program of the National Park Service is providing technical assistance, and Alaska Trails has been involved in the past year as well to bring together regional working groups, coalesce the statewide advisory group, and conduct those meetings, and start writing the chapters of the SCORP. The next steps are between now and December is completion of the chapters, incorporating all the input we received from the statewide advisors and the regional working groups. This is happening right now this spring. Then completing the contractors' work for providing GIS maps of supply of outdoor recreation infrastructure, analyzing the cell phone aggregated and anonymized cell phone data to assess the demand and for outdoor recreation, and doing public surveys and land manager surveys. This is happening simultaneously along with the writing of the chapters. And then the public review, then the draft SCORP will be available for public review starting August 7th and going through the September 23rd. This is the period I highlighted in blue. This is the period where we will be asking the public to provide comments, review, feedback for the draft. And then after that, in October, we'll be incorporating this review feedback, and we'll submit the SCORP for the final National Park Service review, which is the agency that needs to receive the SCORP by November, December. So that is the structure. That is the schedule for the year. And I wanted to say, if you have questions, you can reach to any of us on this list here. You can also check out the SCORP webpage on the State Parks website, and there are ways to reach out and get involved and get signed up for updates for when the draft will be available for public review. Also wanted to mention, if you have ideas or want us to come present to your organization at a scheduled meeting, or maybe you want to just to have a dedicated hour to SCORP, and you would like us to come and present and talk more about what is going on, what is in this document, how to get your feedback and your organization's feedback, please let us know. We will be happy to come and present.
Miriam, I just wanted to say there's 2 more folks on the SCORP team at Alaska Trails, Sue Levinson and Krista Carstenston, that are on the Zoom today. So welcome to both of those. And maybe as a way to wrap up, Bruce Kane asks, what is the process for the public to nominate a project to go into the SCORP?
Maybe because I've got my mic off, and Ricky, tell me if I respond incorrectly. The way we're doing that, Bruce, thanks for the question, is through these regional working groups. And to my earlier comment, the Upper Copper River has not been as fully developed as a region in the state, just not through lack of seeing the value in that, but just through the finite capacity of the team doing this work. But if you're interested, get hold of Ricky, Miriam, or myself, and we can add those kinds of projects and those suggestions either as part of a broadened Mat-Su/Copper River area, or we can hastily pull together a Upper Copper River Basin area, even if it's not as fully developed as some of the other parts of the state. We're interested in bringing people along and really appreciate your and Aetna's interest in the project.
Chris, I'll add that we're in prior SCORPs, the state was broken out into Southeast, South Central, and everything else, rural. And in this effort this year, we're creating actually 15 different regions where we have Southeast in South Central, it's the Kenai Borough, Anchorage, Matsu, Denali, and Fairbanks. And then the rest of the state is broken out into the regional corporation areas. And that's one of the reasons, Bruce, specifically, we've been trying to work with the ANCSCA Regional Nonprofit Association and talk with the land managers meeting. And we'll have more details that we can follow up with that group of folks in May at their meeting.
Yeah, but pester us until we get it right, Bruce.
Any other questions about the SCORP? We could have maybe one more. All right.
Maybe into that silence, I would just say, it sounds boring. It's important. And if you're got the least bit of interest, we do urge you to lean in. It will be valuable to the extent that more people's voices are captured there and that the result isn't just another plan that sits on the shelf. And we're sincere in doing our best to have it be meaningful for Alaska, more so than some of the past SCORPs have been. But the only way we'll get there is if people think, oh yeah, this is important, and I want to make sure it says the right things, and then I'll help kind of lean on the decision makers to act on the recommendations in the document. So I like Devaney saying it doesn't sound boring. Thank you, Devaney.
Well, I'm gonna add that we are going to try and make this SCORP as an advocacy tool. And so if you want to talk about the economic benefits of outdoor recreation in the state, those will be at your fingertips. If you want to talk about the public health and wellness benefits, those will be at your fingertips. If you want to talk about the diversity of outdoor recreation opportunities in the state, that'll be at your fingertips. If you want to talk about what we're going to talk about, sustainable design, like Lee Bowling did a great job yesterday in the presentation about what is sustainable design for single track, mountain bike design in the state, take advantage of our elevation opportunities. Those are all things that are going to be embedded in the SCORP. Our GIS maps are going to be open data resources and putting the standards in to get everybody across the state to be able to upload their outdoor recreation infrastructure supply and demands and needs. So this is an advocacy tool for folks. And it's also a funding tool because you'll be able to advertise projects on this or say, hey, here's an example of a project in a region. And then we are going to working with funders like the Denali Commission, with ADA, with the Rasmussen Foundation for these are the width and breadth of needs in our state for outdoor recreation, which totals into the hundreds of millions of dollars. And these tools can show us visually where these needs are in the state.
And if you ever need a quick pep talk on why it's important, Ricky and I are standing by 24/7. Thanks everybody for your time, your interest.
Thank you. And we hopefully see you at 1 o'clock for updates around the state, trail project updates from around the state.
And thanks, Mariam, for running a complicated morning so well. Really appreciate all the work that got us to this point. There were a lot of moving parts.
Definitely. Woohoo. Zoom technology, yeah. All right, we'll see you soon.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.